Story time about how my best friend found out that I hooked up with her boyfriend. A little background information. I was in high school, and I was best friends with this girl. We're gonna call her M. Well, M and I both had boyfriends, and they were also best friends. But I was super close with her boyfriend, because we had been best friends for like 3 years before they even started dating. Well, the one night we're all at my house, and we're all drinking, having a good time, and I always felt like I had feelings for him, aka my best friend's boyfriend. Well, my boyfriend had to go to his house to get some clothes, and M was the only one sober, so she drove him. So her boyfriend and I are sitting in the living room, and we're gonna call him Nate. Well, Nate and I get to talking, and we were saying how crazy it would be if we started dating. And then I told him that I had feelings for him. And he said that he did too. So we decided to be terrible people and we hooked up. And after that, we definitely knew that there weren't any feelings there. But he went and got a shower because he had my lipstick all over him and he was really sweaty. Then my best friend got back like for part two of how my best friend found out that I hooked up with her boyfriend. So like I said, her and my boyfriend finally got back to my house. And she goes, "Oh, where's Nate?" And I told her that Nate was in the shower. I told her that whenever he was trying to pour a drink, he spilt vodka all over his clothes. So we're all sitting there, and then he comes out in the exact same clothes that he had on before. And she was like, "Oh, I thought you spilled vodka all over your clothes." And he was like, oh, we put them in the dryer. So she literally got up, went over, and smelt his clothes, and they did not smell like vodka. So after that, she starts flipping the fuck out. She's like, "Why don't your fucking clothes smell like vodka?" And then he came up with something. He was like, "Oh, she got confused. I spilled water all over my clothes." So as we're all watching a movie, I realized that Nate has a hickey on his neck. From me. So I started having her drink a lot because maybe she wouldn't remember and she would have thought that she gave it to him. Well, I woke up the next morning and nobody was at my house. And when I went into the bathroom, I saw that all my hair was cut off.
Am I the asshole for fake sleeping all night to see if my wife is lying? The past couple of months, my wife has been complaining about our cats. She's been claiming that the cats wake her up constantly and that she's frustrated every night that she has to get up and open the door for the cats. Or the cats keep making noises, or the cats keep jumping on her. It got me to the point where she started saying she wants me to get rid of them. I've told her I've never seen or heard any of this, but she claims I sleep through it all. She kept telling me that she was getting less and less sleep and kept acting aggressive, blaming lack of sleep from the cats and that if I didn't get rid of them, she'd leave me. I legitimately started considering giving the cats to my sister until I noticed something. One morning, she claimed she had gotten up multiple times throughout the night to help the cats. She listed a bunch of times. I thought it was weird because I had been up until 4 a.m. and she claimed that she got up at 1 a.m. to open the door for them and a few times around 3 a.m. because they were meowing and jumping on her. I was in the bedroom the entire time while she slept, and I know none of this happened. Things weren't adding up, so I decided to run a test. I waited until she said she was going to bed, then I let the cats out of our bedroom. I lowered my phone brightness and faked going to sleep. I just lay there in my bed for the entire night bored, but I definitely did not fall asleep. I made sure to make timestamps every 30 minutes on my phone through Discord just to be sure. I marked down every noise my cats made. One cat had jumped down from something and made a little noise around 3:18 a.m. and one ate food relatively quietly by the bedroom door at 4:57 a.m. Other than that, nothing happened. Sure enough, my wife slept from 11 p.m. until 9 a.m. and that morning she claimed she had woken up at least 7 times to open doors from the cat noises and cats jumping on her. At this point, I was pissed because she was clearly lying to me. I was exhausted and fed up with the lies, so I bluntly called her out on it. I told her, "That's funny. I stayed up all night to monitor the cats and they weren't even in the room at all last night. I have timestamps and everything, so you've been lying to me and trying to convince me to get rid of my cats? Why?" She just sat there quietly shaking and looking pissed, then got up and left without answering. She came back hours later and ignored me whenever I talked, and when I asked her how I'm the bad guy in the situation, she finally said that I was treating her like a child by lying about sleeping and staying up all night just to see if she was lying or not. And that making timestamps and everything as if I was an investigator was going too far and makes me an obsessive asshole. I did it because she was threatening to make me get rid of the cats or she'd leave me, and her claims didn't add up. So am I the obsessive asshole here?
Storytime, I got my boyfriend back for cheating on me by getting him arrested. It was the summer before my sophomore year in high school, and my sister just got accepted to a college that was 25 minutes away from our house. So I would always hang out with her and her friends and go to parties with them. Well, there was this one guy in her friend group that I really liked, and he was 22, and he also had a girlfriend. But did that stop me? No, because he was really hot. And because we would hang out all the time, him and I were getting super close. We would FaceTime each other all the time. We would hang out even when we weren't with my sister and her friends. Well, the one night I'm sitting at home and I get a call from him. And he's like, "My girlfriend and I broke up. I really need someone to talk to." And I'm like, "Aw, you can come over. I'll comfort you." So he comes over and I comfort him, and then we do the nasty. And the next morning I had to sneak him out my window because my parents would have flipped shit. So him and I start dating after that. And then Halloween weekend comes up. and I go to a party with my sister and our friend group, like for part 2. Part 2 about how I got my boyfriend arrested for cheating on me. So like I said, we got to the Halloween party and we met him there, and my sister had no idea that we were dating. Because I'm 16, he's 22, she would have flipped out. So a little bit into the party, I'm super drunk, we're dancing and everything. So he's really close with the girl who's throwing the party, so he asked her if we can use one of the bedrooms. And it sounded like he said, oh, can me and Millie use one of the bedrooms? You guys are gonna find out who Millie is in a second. So we go up to the room and, we start doing the nasty. And next thing I know, some girl walks in screaming at him and breaks a beer bottle over his fucking head. She starts calling him a cheater and everything else. And I get a glimpse of her, and it's one of the girls in our friend group named Millie. So I'm fucking shook right now. I'm laying down, he's on top of me, blood's fucking dripping down my face. And finally she realizes it's me. So I hurry up, I get my clothes on, and Millie's just sitting there looking at me. So I go downstairs real quick, tell my sister I want to go home, like for part 3. Part 3 of how I got my boyfriend arrested for cheating on me. So I get home and I text the girl whose party it was, and she had no idea what happened. So I was just like, oh, it's Millie blah blah blah's girlfriend. And she's like, yeah, but they're off and on all the time. He has a new girlfriend like every other week. So at that point, I block him on everything and I just go to sleep. Well, the next day I wake up and my sister and Millie are in my room. And I'm like, oh shit, here's a fucking intervention. But plot twist, my sister's like, Millie told me what happened with you last night. And I'm like, what? And she's like, how he took advantage of you. And I'm like, oh yeah, that. And my sister was like, it's okay, it's not your fault. Like, we need to go to the police. It isn't right what he did to you. And none of them had an idea that, like, we were dating the whole time. So my sister was like, you need to tell mom. So I told my mom, and then we got the police involved, and now he's in jail. Yes, I know what I did was fucked up. I know I lied. But I have no fucking remorse. Karma's a bitch.
Am I the asshole for telling the truth at my best friend's wedding during my toast? I'm a 30-year-old male and my best friend got married last week. I just bought a house and my wife is expecting our son in November, so I let him know I was limited in what I could contribute financially. But I did tell him I would try my best. So I went to the bachelor party in Miami, I rented the tux, and paid for mine and my wife's dinner at the rehearsal dinner. I also had a gift of $300 that I was going to give them, but we will get to why I didn't. His fiancée at the time would text me multiple times a day with updates. Fine. I didn't always respond, and it got to the point where if I didn't respond at least once a day, I'd get a call from my buddy. She texted me for the following reasons. 1. My wife was not allowed to talk about our pregnancy at all. She didn't want anyone to focus on that more than her, the bride. 2. She was not going to order any special food for my wife. No one asked her to. My wife was fine with whatever she was going to be served. 3. I was not helping the groom enough. He had to help her with favors, seating charts, and programs, so I had to help him with those things according to her. 4. She said if I was a true best man, I would offer to pay for the bar bill. I don't even know what that means. 5. She had to read and approve my speech before the rehearsal dinner and wanted to be included as much as my buddy. She told me to make things up if I had to. I was not allowed to include anyone but the two of them, and no inside jokes or stories about my buddy that didn't include her. 6. Her last text said to tell my wife to keep it together and not make a pregnancy scene during the wedding. Also, she wanted her to choose a dress that downplayed her pregnancy as much as possible. I was just so aggravated, I spoke to my buddy to see if he could reason with her. He told me to just play ball this one time, it's her day, and to cut him a break because he'd be dealing with her nonsense for the rest of his life. The day of, all the bride and my best friend do is scold me, berate me, and bark orders. I head down to the bar for the drink. The bride's mother is there and warned me not to get drunk because I ruined her daughter's day enough. That was the final straw. I didn't give them the card with the cash, and in the speech, I used my friend's exact wording about having to deal with her nonsense for the rest of his life. I wished him the best and told him I'd always be there for him, especially during the divorce. So, am I the asshole? Yeah, you are, but good job.
Story time about how I got caught skipping school almost every day of my senior year. So our school had just started this new thing where you fill out all your contact information online. And my dad was like, okay, yeah, just fill yours out. And it pretty much was who can pick you up, who can make early dismissals for you, who they can call if you're in trouble. Well, I decided to be a sneaky little bastard and put my boyfriend in for every single one of those contacts. I would start school around 7:30 a.m. and I would go to the nurse's office at like 9 a.m. and she would call and my boyfriend would act like my dad and be like, okay, yeah, just let her drive home. Well, my guidance counselor noticed after about 3 months of me never being at school. So she called the number hoping to speak to my dad. But instead she got my boyfriend. And he just thought it was a random person, so he didn't act like my dad. Because neither of us knew. Like for part 2. Okay, part 2. Okay, so pretty much what happened after that is she called and like she found out that it wasn't my dad. And then she went digging and she called my sister to the office and she was like, "What's your dad's phone number?" And my sister was like, "Why? Like, don't you guys have it already?" And I also put the same numbers for my sisters so that way in case this day came, then it wouldn't look suspicious. Well, I don't know what she threatened my sister with, but she scared the hell out of her, so she gave her my dad's number. And so my sister told me whenever she got home, so I went to school the next day. And it was like a surprise party whenever I walked in the office. The dean was there, the principal was there, and my guidance counselor. So I got in trouble and then they were like, "Oh, we're calling your dad." So what did I do? I left before they called him. Story time about the girl who found out that I was hooking up with her boyfriend for 3 months straight. So a little background information. I was in high school. And there was this boy that I really liked. And I had a crush on him since I was in 7th grade. And the only time he would talk to me is whenever he wanted me to send him nudes. Well, in high school he got a girlfriend. But while he was dating her, he would still ask me for nudes. And of course I would still send them. Well, the summer before my junior year, I got a job at this restaurant. Well, almost every single day, the guy that I liked would bring his girlfriend in. Because guess what? His dad owned the restaurant. We're gonna call this boy Alex. Well, the one night I was supposed to close with this girl, but she ended up having to leave because of a family thing. So Alex came in to help me close. And while we were there, we were talking. And this was the longest that we ever talked. Well, he said, "Do you want to come over to my house after we're done?" So a bitch said yes. And we did the nasty and he took me home in the morning. Well, then he started coming in often to help me close. Well, 3 months later, as I'm closing, his girlfriend and her friends walk in for part 2. Part 2 about the girl who found out that I was hooking up with her boyfriend for 3 months straight. So like I said, the one night nobody could come in to help me close, and while I'm wiping off the counter, the girl and 3 of her friends walk in. I thought that she might have just forgot something because she was here earlier with her boyfriend, aka the guy that I was hooking up with. So I was super nice. I was like, "Hey, what do you need?" And literally, as soon as I finished my sentence, one of her friends comes up behind me and grabs me by my ponytail. And then his girlfriend, we're gonna call her Allie, she comes up and punches me straight in the middle of the mouth. Literally, right in the middle of the mouth. I had to go to the dentist the next day because 2 of my teeth were missing. So then she goes and sits down at a table while she takes a video of 3 of her best friends beating the shit out of me. So then I'm sitting there, I could barely move. And then she plugs in one of those things that guys shave their head with. And as soon as she figured out how to work the damn thing, it literally took her 10 minutes. My mom walks in because she had been waiting outside for 25 minutes at this point. So my mom called the cops and I pretty much won. My head wasn't shaved. I got a new set of teeth the next day and her boyfriend still hits me up.
Am I the asshole for letting my daughter wear an expensive dress to my sister's house? Me, my husband, and our 15-year-old daughter, Georgia, went to my sister's place for lunch this past weekend. Georgia is very bright. She completed her exams early and is now studying more advanced material. She's a big fashionista, a lot more than I was at that age. She loves pretty clothes and outfits, and we're happy to get her as much as we can, provided she behaves well and keeps up the good grades. The lunch with my sister was fairly casual, but Georgia wore her new pink dress. My sister isn't as well off as we are, unfortunately, and she is raising 3 children on her own, and her job isn't a high-paying one. In the past, she asked me if Georgia could tone down her outfits when we come to visit because she doesn't want her kids being upset because they can't afford things like that. I do get my sister's point, but it's not down to me to police what Georgia wears. I've spoken to Georgia about it, but I left the final decision to her. Anyway, so we went for lunch and Georgia ended up getting into an argument when my sister's 13-year-old daughter Lucy asked about the dress and where it was from. Georgia answered that it didn't matter because Lucy couldn't afford it anyway. We told Georgia to shut up as soon as the comment left her lips, but it soon ended up with Georgia and Lucy screaming at each other. My sister made the kids vanilla milkshakes, and Lucy decided to throw hers all over Georgia, ruining the dress. Georgia burst into tears, and to be fair, my sister did bring her a change of clothes. I said that if the dress was permanently ruined, I wanted my sister to reimburse us. My sister has refused and said that it was our responsibility because my daughter wore an expensive dress despite being warned not to. The dress cost a couple of $100 and washing it has failed to completely remove the stains. Frankly, I don't care about my sister's warnings. We can't make Georgia wear what she doesn't want to, and it's not our problem that she can't control her child and stop her from ruining a beautiful dress. So, am I the asshole? Oh my god, what an asshole, what a bitch. What kind of sister are you, bro? Your sister's going through shit and you're gonna be like, reimburse me for my daughter's dress? You could, oh my god, alhamdulillah, what is wrong with people? What's the difference between you and strangers if you're gonna ask for money back for a dress? Chill out.
Story time about one of the most embarrassing things that has ever happened to me in high school. So a little background information. I was in my freshman year of high school. Well, spring break was coming up. Well, the whole year, my friend and I hadn't been to one single party. So we decided that we wanted to try and go to a party every single day of spring break, which was about to be super difficult because we had to worry about my strict-ass parents and my neighbors. A little background info on my neighbor. My neighbor is this girl who's in my same grade and she literally hates my guts. I don't know why, but literally anything that I do, she'll go and she'll tell her mom, and then her mom will tell my mom, because my mom and her mom are best friends. But before we know it, Saturday comes around, and we go back to school on Monday. We did not make it to one single party. Well, later that night, we found out that one of our friends was throwing one. So around 11 o'clock, everybody's sleeping, and I walk out my back door, hop over my fence, and I start heading towards the road where my friend was going to be parked. You know, who do I see fucking sitting outside on their porch reading a fucking book? My fucking neighbor. Like for part 2. Part 2 about the most embarrassing thing that ever happened to me in high school. So like I said, the bitch that I hate is sitting out on her porch reading a fucking book at 11 o'clock at night. So I crouched down so she couldn't see me. I run to the car, and my friend and I finally go to the party. Well, we get to that party and it's really boring, so we decided to go to a different one. And the party that we were about to go through was being thrown by the kid that I really liked. So I start hanging out with him when we get there. I'm drinking a lot, having so much fun, and I really have to go to the bathroom. And I didn't know where anything was at all, so I grabbed my friend and we're looking around everywhere for the bathroom. Because when I asked him, he was super drunk and really couldn't explain to me where the bathroom was. So we were pretty much left to fend for ourselves. But we ended up not being able to find a bathroom, and this is where I had to improvise. So my friend and I go to the laundry room, and we see the litter box in there for the cat. Well, at this point, I was desperate, so I just went in the litter box. Well, 30 minutes later, the cops show up to the party. And everybody had to hurry up and leave because we did not want to get underages. Like for part 3. Part 3 about the most embarrassing thing that ever happened to me in high school. So like I said, I went in the litter box, and then the cops showed up. We all ran because we didn't want to get underages. I was able to sneak back into my house without anybody knowing. But when I get to school on Monday, everybody's talking about the party. And apparently the kid that I liked who threw the party, his parents didn't know that he threw one at all. And this was like during first period. So I went to text him and ask him if he was grounded because we were supposed to hang out the next day. And I realized that I am blocked. So I'm thinking, what the fuck? Why does he have me blocked? So I told my friend that he blocked me, and she goes, it's probably because he saw what you did in the laundry room. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, there's no fucking way that he knows. Because there was a door that led to the outside in the laundry room, there were cameras in there. So everybody saw this video of me. People were posting it on their Finstas, posting it on their Snapchat stories. It was so fucking embarrassing. Not to mention the bitch that I hate who lives next door showed my parents the fucking video, and I was grounded for fucking 4 months. Story time about why my mom kicked me out when I was 16. So a little background information. This had all started as soon as my dad left my mom and I. I was like 13 around the time. Well, ever since then, my mom would have different guys in and out of the house all the time. Like, we were lucky if a month went by and she was still with the same dude. Which, I mean, I kind of get it because my dad did leave us for a woman that he had started another family with. But at the same time, it was just a whole mess. Anyway, so she had got with this new guy, and we're gonna call him Tyler. And by the way, the dudes that she would date, they would literally live at our house. Anyway, so a week after he moved in, I started getting really close to him, which usually never happens. Usually I would try to keep my distance because I knew how wrong it was of her having all these different guys in the house when I'm only 16. Anyways, every time that my mom would go to work, he would invite me to go see a movie, and he would just be really flirty with me. And he was only 6 years older than me, and my mom was 32. You do the math. Anyways, like for part 2. Part 2 about why my mom kicked me out when I was 16. So like I said, the guy was being super flirty with me, inviting me to the movies when my mom wasn't home and all that stuff. Well, then it led to more than just that. By the way, this guy did not have a job, so he was home with me 24/7. And I was doing online school. So we were in the house by ourselves, 12 hours a day, 5 days a week. Anyways, like I said, it led to more, and we started doing the nasty and stuff. Ew, just, yeah. Well, the one day after we got done doing the nasty in my mom's room, we had fell asleep. And yes, we did not have clothes on. Well, at 2 in the morning, I hear someone pounding on the bedroom door, and my mom worked night shifts. So we get up, he hurries up and gets dressed and tells me to hide under the bed, and he opens the door, and it's my mom's sister. My sister literally lived in the apartment next door, and she was like, oh yeah, neither of you were answering the phone, so she wanted me to check on you guys, like, where's Elena? And I'm still under the bed naked, like for part 3. Part 3 about why my mom kicked me out when I was 16. So like I said, I'm laying under the bed, no clothes on. She asks where I am. And he's like, oh, she should be in her room. So he goes looking for me everywhere with her. And he's like, oh, well, maybe she's outside on the patio. And I don't know why the hell my mom's sister had a key to our apartment anyways. But she's still looking for me in the apartment, and she looks under the fucking bed. And at first she's like, oh my god, what did he do to you? And I'm trying to tell her nothing, like I made that decision on my own. So she calls my mom right away. My mom comes home, she's screaming at me, and she kicks me out. So I go to my grandma's house, and I told my grandma what happened. And my grandma calls her, and she's like, it's not her fault that you gave her daddy issues. And I'm like, bruh, what the fuck? Child, anyways. So then she goes on Facebook and starts posting about how I'm a whore and a slut and how, like, it isn't her boyfriend's fault at all. So now
Story time about when I told a girl who was hitting on me that she needs to see a doctor. I met this girl at a camping event and we hit it off pretty well. I was pretty damn religious at the time and took the whole no sex before marriage rule to heart. Dating wasn't allowed in my family until you hit 18 and I was 17 at the time. By the end of the trip, she asked for my IG, which I replied, I don't use IG. Then she asked for my Snapchat. I don't have a Snapchat either. Finally, she asked, what do you use? And I told her Facebook. You'd think her going out of her way to add me on a platform that she hasn't used in years would be a hint, but nope. My dumb ass just thought, at least she'll get to know how good Messenger is now. Fast forward about 2 weeks, we've been talking consistently for a while and she's subtly mentioning all these ideal date spots in the city and all I could reply with was, wow, looks like a great spot. Let me know how it is if you ever go there. At this point, she went for the Hail Mary and sent me a picture of her thigh pointing out a mole that she hasn't noticed before. I went into diagnosis mode and told her Google said it could either be a mole or cancer. She laughed thinking that I was joking when I wasn't and asked if I was free for a video call. I answered the call and there she was, naked in a fucking towel with the camera zooming into her cleavage. That's when she says, I noticed a mole right here too, as she points to the camera right above her nipple and almost lifts the towel. My dumb ass responds, hate to break it to you, but I ain't a doctor. If you're worried about it, you should really have it checked out. The call ended abruptly afterwards and she stopped messaging me after that day for a week. Then she blocked me. I was dumbfounded and thought, if she really hates being my friend that much, then she should have at least had the decency to be upfront about it. Fast forward to today while I was sitting in my place watching some Netflix when out of nowhere this flashback hit me like a truck carrying years worth of obliviousness. I live in California and recently returned to working in person. My job hours have recently been erratic because of this. Yesterday, I got out of work around 8 p.m. and was too tired to make myself dinner. I figured I'd stop at a restaurant for dinner, which would also help a local business that's had a tough year. I got to the restaurant a bit after 8:30, but I had looked it up beforehand and knew it was open till 9, which I thought wouldn't be a problem. However, as soon as I sat down, the waitress was clearly rushing me and actually told me not to order a burger because they've already shut down the grill. I informed her that the restaurant's posted hours were until 9 p.m. and it wasn't my fault that they were shutting down before that. She gave me a bunch of attitude but then shrieked, fine, before storming off. The burger took a long time to make, probably because they shut the grill down too early and I didn't get it until after 9. While I was eating, the waitress was constantly hovering me, which I didn't appreciate after a long day's work. By the time I was finished and paid, it was around 9:25. I thought the waitress was rude and inconsiderate, so I didn't tip her. I pay for good service, not to be berated. After all of this, the waitress confronted me while I was walking to my car and kept calling me an a-hole. I feel like this further justified me not leaving a tip, but some folks at my work today actually took her side. Shouldn't a restaurant's posted hours mean they welcome customers before then? Shouldn't going on a tirade against a customer mean you don't get a tip? Am I the asshole for not leaving a tip after getting horrible service?
Am I the asshole for pressing charges against an 18-year-old girl? I have a 17-year-old son who has a girlfriend and an ex. My son also has a car. I think you can see where this is going. My son dumped his ex-girlfriend because he began to have feelings for another girl. He spoke to me and I made sure to tell him how to dump her lightly and not to hurt her feelings before trying things out with the other girl. He did, telling the ex why she was being dumped. Obviously the ex was not happy. She ended up keying my son's car. I'm talking to the point where it's completely messed up. She carved my son's new girlfriend's name onto the doors and called her the S word. She also drew a man with a very small eggplant and labeled it my son's name. She also broke one of the windows and poured a soft drink into it. I came home and she was pouring in the soft drink and immediately called the cops. The ex got arrested and had to pay bail. I'm feeling like pressing charges because it's my son's first car and we don't want to spend so much money on a new car. The ex's mother came to my house and was full on screaming at me. She said that I was a monster for calling the cops on a woman of color. And she also stated that my son cheated and deserved to have his car ruined. I really don't feel bad in the slightest for pressing charges and ruining her life. She is acting really irrational. Am I the asshole for pressing charges against an 18-year-old girl? Am I the asshole for barking at my ex? For some background, Ezra, my ex, male 40-ish, and I, female 36, split in 2018. After 6 months in the relationship, he started to show some red flags. I ran for the hills, got over him, found my person, and I'm overall happy in life. That's now. Then I focused on work, him on his new girlfriend that lasted maybe 8 months. Their breakup also started the calls. First for support, but they soon evolved into complaining sessions I just wasn't in the mood for. It got so bad that I had to block him and then the emails started coming. I blocked him there too. In the meantime, I moved in with my man 2 blocks away from my best friend and within a mile from Ezra's baby mama's place. I was on my way home from my BFFs and had a lovely night. Was all tipsy and happy, headphones in, and walking, dancing through the streets. And all of a sudden, a wild Ezra appeared with a kid 13 in tow. Since I didn't hear him calling me, he decided to rip one of my headphones and started yelling this and that. Basically rubbish about how I ruined his last relationship, which I never even met the girl, so witchcraft it is. And how I'm a huge B word. Well, I started barking. And kept barking, rising the volume to match his. People were staring, but I was too tipsy to care. Lucky for him, a clever boy, he got quiet quickly, looked around, and left. Eureka! Something works.
Since then, every time Ezra bothers me in public, I just bark at him loudly till he runs away.
So something straight out of the poltergeist happened to me last night. So last night, I got home around 11 o'clock at night. I was hanging out with my boyfriend all day. I get home, I do my homework, and I finally am drifting off to bed around 1 in the morning. So I fall asleep. I am sleeping at 1 in the morning. And 3 hours later, at 4 a.m., I wake up. I'm like wide awake. I check my phone, and it says it's 4 in the morning. Why did I just wake up 3 hours after I went to bed? And why is it 4 in the morning? What woke me up? So I'm like sitting there trying to realize like why I woke up. To figure out what woke me up, and I just hear my dog growling, like full on growling, like somebody is in my room. So I start looking around, and I notice that the lights around my room, like these Christmas lights, are flashing on and off. Like not the flashing like they're going out, like they're about to die. Like they are flashing on and off in like a sequence, like out of Stranger Things. My lights are just blinking. I really wish that I recorded this, but it was 4 in the morning, and my first instinct was not to grab my phone and start recording. It was to immediately unplug my lights. So I unplugged my lights, and I'm sitting there in my bed just laying down, all freaked out. Tears are rolling down my face. My dog had stopped growling, and I'm just like, oh my god, what is happening? It is 4 in the morning. My lights are flashing. My dog's growling. Now, this is when things get a little insane, and I don't blame you if you don't believe me, because this sounds like a horror movie script. I would not believe myself. I don't believe this happened. This is speechless. I am laying in bed, trying to fall asleep, trying to forget that any of this happened, when I hear something fall to my floor. I hear a piece of clothing fall onto my floor. A little So I sit up out of my bed to see what fell on the floor, and my white hoodie hanging right there, that rack right there, that white hoodie fell onto my floor. Now you're probably like, why is this scary? Why is this a big deal? Because Thursday night, I saw a little white boy in a hoodie run across my hallway at like 2, 3 in the morning. A little white boy in a hoodie ran across my hallway, and now a white hoodie just fell onto the floor at 4 in the morning while my lights were flashing. You're telling me that isn't a coincidence? You're telling me that is a coincidence. No, that is insane to me. This sounds like it is a horror movie script. It sounds like I feel like I'm in a horror movie. Where are the cameras? Where are the cameras? So now I'm going to my mom's tonight. I'm not staying here again right now. I'm literally petrified, scared. This is something out of the poltergeist, out of the Conjuring. But once the hoodie fell to the floor, I literally just wanted to go back to bed. Like, there was nothing I could do except to go to bed. I just was scrolling through TikTok and I fell asleep. Woke up at 10 in the morning, and yeah. I don't blame you if you don't believe this. This literally doesn't sound real. I promise you it is. I'm terrified. Terrified to say the least. Welcome to Kayla's Haunted House. $5 per person. Should I do that?
Storytime, my husband cheated on me with my mother right before we got married. Disclaimer, this is not my story. He confessed it to me yesterday out of guilt. He said he was extremely drunk on his bachelor night, which I knew had happened. He doesn't drink often and overdid it. The next morning, he didn't remember anything after a certain point. I didn't think anything of it. Looking back, he was pretty off. I assumed it was wedding jitters. Now he's told me he did remember coming home that night, and that's when my mom came on to him. He went along with it and ended up sleeping with her. He passed out in her bed and was there the whole night. My bachelorette party was the same night. I came home around 3 a.m. to see he was not in our bed. I texted him but assumed he crashed with a friend because he said he might do that if things go crazy. But he was actually with my mother. The next morning, he quietly slipped out while I was asleep. Then opened the door pretending he had come home after sleeping off his drunkenness with his friends. He got into bed with me and told me that lie. As if that wasn't enough, he also tried to sleep with me soon after he'd been sleeping with my mom hours before. We got married the next day. My mom has a history of trying to flirt with the guys I've dated before, and my husband knew this. I called her last night and said my husband told me everything. She spent several minutes pretending not to know what I was talking about. Then she denied everything, saying I made it up. Then she claimed she woke up to my husband forcing himself on her. I eventually just ended the call because she refused to take responsibility or apologize.
My husband and I started dating when we were 13, and I left him 15 years later. He suggested having an open marriage, and I didn't really want it, but I felt like it was a trap to say yes. I agreed after him having brought it up a few times over the last few years. He said he didn't actually want to have sex with other women himself. He just found it extremely erotic to have a wife who would sleep with other men, and he wanted to be a part of that. I said, okay, fine, as long as you're actually okay with this, and because we'll be a team on this, I'll give it a go. He had been the only man that I'd ever slept with, so I was very hesitant about this. After I was knee-deep in exploring his fetish with him, he began to trickle the truth. He started by saying he might want to do the same and find a woman to sleep with himself. Then that he might be polyamorous. To admitting that he had been in love with my best friend for a decade and had been eating at him since we were 17, and now that we're part of this lifestyle 10 years later, he can be honest about it. I'm absolutely positive he chose these series of events exactly as he did so that I'd be a hypocrite if I opposed any of it. However, what he didn't expect is that I'd meet someone special. Someone I enjoyed talking to and someone who made me feel entirely different than I'd felt with my husband my whole life. I left my husband telling him that we needed to talk. I said that I don't think we're working anymore and that I'm not happy living this way. He asked if I still loved him and I said not like I used to. And that was it. He was emotional, of course, but I think he saw it coming.
Storytime on how a man followed me into my apartment and tried to harm me. Okay, so boom. I'm 19 years old and I've been living alone for the past year. It's just me and my pet dog, and every morning and night I walk my dog. A bad habit that I have is that since I live in a safe neighborhood, every time I go downstairs to walk my dog, I leave my door unlocked. I never thought that anyone was even watching me, to be honest. My thought process was like, since the door is closed, no one is going to actually think it's unlocked. But that wasn't very smart of me. One very scary night, my life changed. It was around 10 o'clock at night, and I did my usual routine and started walking my dog. I left my door unlocked and thought nothing of it, especially since around this time, no one is really outside. I went back upstairs to the 4th floor where I stay and opened my door, then walked inside and closed my door. But I didn't lock it just yet. I was taking off my dog's leash. Then all of a sudden, a 40-year-old man opened my door. At this point, I was at a distance from the door and closer to my bedroom. My dog started barking, and then I said, "Excuse me, what are you doing?" But I did say it in fear. Then the man took a step in my door and said, "I just want to talk." My door was still slightly open, but more closed, and he was fully into my home at this point. He told me to go into my room and be quiet or else he would use his weapon. He had a GUN. I didn't want him to do anything to me, so I listened. But I had hope because I also had my boyfriend's GUN in my room. My boyfriend leaves it there so I can protect myself. I never thought I would have to use it, but I'm glad my boyfriend thought of my safety, regardless of what I said. I walked to my room shaking with him about 10 steps behind me. I told my dog to heel because I didn't want this man to harm my dog either. As soon as I walked into my room, I took the GUN and shot him. The man fell to the ground and so did his weapon. I turned on the lights and shot him right in the stomach around here on his side. My neighbors all came out after the shot and we all called the cops. They got there pretty fast. And my boyfriend stayed with me for 3 months every day after that. They did an investigation and looked at the cameras. Turned out that he'd been stalking me the whole time. He knew my habits and planned to get me at the right time. Even if you feel alone, someone can be watching. I'm grateful for my boyfriend for leaving his weapon with me. He has like 3, but leaving one with me saved my life. Who knows what would have happened to me had I not shot this man. The shot missed his abdominal muscle, so he lived, but it's going to be a sad life. Okay, so boom, like I said, he knew all my habits and planned to get me at the right time. You never know who's watching you, even if you feel alone. The shot missed his abdominal muscle, so he lived. But it's going to be a sad life. The doctor said that his injury looks like eventually it would lead to death. And even if it doesn't, he will be very weak and fragile. So he couldn't hurt anyone even if he wanted to. But until then, he will be in jail. So no matter how safe you feel, make sure you are protecting yourself. And don't be like me doing stupid things like leaving your door unlocked. It takes 2 seconds to lock your door, and that could be the difference from life or death. Stay safe, guys, both men and women.
This was one of my first times getting pulled over, and it was literally, like, weird. Like, this cop was sus. So back in the summer this year, I had bought myself a car, an $800 Honda Civic. It was disgusting. It was a very ugly car, but I needed it because at the time I didn't have a car. And I had just gotten my license plate in. The metal license plate, oh yeah. And I had put it on my back window, like, you know, the window in the back by your trunk. I set it on there. That's not illegal. It is perfectly legal, and people do it all the time. So it is 10 o'clock at night. I'm leaving my boyfriend's house, and I'm driving down this road when all of a sudden I notice there's a cop behind me. And I'm like, okay, no big deal. I just won't speed. Like, just go the speed limit, no biggie. So they're behind me for like a mile. And I'm like, okay, this is getting a little weird. So then I get to a 4-way stop. And there's another car pulling up to the four-way stop. So I go, the other car at the four-way stop goes behind me, and then the cop goes behind that car. I'm like, okay, I'm cool, I'm not gonna get pulled over. Then all of a sudden, this lovely cop goes around the car, turns on his lights, and pulls me over. I'm like, okay, cool. I pull over, and I'm like, I really don't know what I'm getting in trouble for. Like, I didn't do anything. I was going the speed limit. He comes up to my car, he asks for my license and registration. He asks how old I am. I tell him my age, give him my license and registration. He goes back to his car. He doesn't tell me what I got pulled over for, so I'm still like, what's happening? So I'm waiting in my car. Then he comes back up to my window, and he's like, ma'am, I'm gonna have you step out of the vehicle. When I tell you, I literally pooped my pants. I was like, wow, I'm about to get arrested. I'm literally about to get arrested. Like, this is it. I look at my boyfriend who was also in the car. I'm like, this is it for me. And he's like wide-eyed, like, oh my God. Because I'm telling you, cops don't just have you get out of the car. So I step out of the car, and he takes me over to his police car, and he's like, how old are you again? I'm like, 16. And he's like, how old is that guy in the car with you? And I'm like, oh, 19. And then he gets really close to me like this. He goes, are your parents okay with that? I'm like, yeah. Yeah, they're okay with it. Then he asks me what my curfew is. I'm like, oh, 11 o'clock. You know, gotta get going. You're holding me back. About to be late. He's like, okay. He gives me my license and registrations back. Lets me go back to my car. And he informs me, finally, that he pulled me over because my license plate was on the wrong side of my car. It was on the right side and it was supposed to be on the left side. That it's illegal for my license plate to be on the right side. I don't think that's correct, but okay. I was scared. He made me nervous. Like, he got up in my face and was like, are your parents okay with that? Okay, yes they are. And if they weren't, what are you going to do? If my parents were not okay with it, what were you gonna do? Frickin' arrest me? Frickin' arrest him? Call my dad? Like, okay. Also, I know y'all are gonna ask for proof, so here's a video I made while I was getting pulled over. Maybe the cop had a crush on me. Give me a kiss. My school tried to expel me for making a TikTok. Expelled for making a TikTok. So on the third day of school, literally school had just started. Me and this girl had an altercation in the hallway. It wasn't a fight, but it was, I don't know. I don't know what to classify it as, but I'm not gonna get into details because I don't want to rehash drama with this girl because I genuinely don't care that much. But obviously, since we had made a scene in the hallway, we had to go down to the principal's office. So I go down to the principal's office, and as soon as I walk into the office, they make me give them my phone and put it on a bookshelf that I can't reach. I'm like, why can't I have my phone? And they're like, we don't want you to be recording this interaction you're having with us and posting it on TikTok. And I'm like, okay, a little weird, whatever. Then they inform me that they know all about my TikTok, that they keep updated on it, and they know everything that I post. And I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah, that's cool. I didn't really care because I don't post anything bad on my TikTok account. Like, my entire family sees it. Why would I care if my principal saw it? You know what I mean? It was a little weird, but whatever. I'm talking to the principal about the altercation I had with the girl in the hallway, you know, filling them in, giving my side of the story. I'm thinking I'm about to get, like, sent back down to class. And all of a sudden, one of the other principals walks in. And I don't know why, but for some reason, my old school had, like, 5 principals. So one of the other ones walks in. They look me dead in the eyes. And he goes, what do you post on your TikTok account? And I'm like, oh, I just post story times, like stuff like that. He then proceeds to whip out his phone and pull up a TikTok I made over a year ago. Like, this TikTok was so old, it was back when COVID had first started. I had orange and black hair. Like, this TikTok was so old. He then plays the TikTok, and it's a TikTok of me telling a story about how in 8th grade I almost got into a fight. And by the way, in that story, I used completely fake names. I even switched around details in that story so that it wasn't so obvious who I was talking about. But the main part is that I used fake names. I did not say anybody's real name in that story. So once we're done watching my TikTok, he's like, so we know you made that TikTok about the girl you had the altercation with in the hallway. And I'm like, but I didn't say her name. They're like, that doesn't matter. And I'm like, ooh, but I also made that TikTok a year ago. I don't know why it's relevant now. And they're like, that doesn't matter. So I'm like, okay, cool. They then threatened to expel me for making that video. And I'm sitting there like so confused. And I'm like, y'all, I did not say anybody's name. Fake names all the way. And it was made a year ago. I would get it if I posted it yesterday, but this was posted a year ago, honey. So they're just sitting down lecturing me, telling me to stop posting on TikTok. And then this is where the kicker is. They tell me that this TikTok I made a year ago is going to go on my record, on my school record. So yeah. So they put down a TikTok I made with fake names, posted a year ago, on my school record. Then they said if I ever talked about this situation that I'm talking about now, I would be facing expulsion if I ever talked about this on TikTok. Expulsion. Facing expulsion for making a TikTok. But obviously, I don't care now because I don't go to that school anymore.
Story time about how I caught my grandma with my dad.
So a little background information, I was 16, and it was the first day of 11th grade. Well, my friend wanted me to come to the mall with her after school that day. She was like, screw your grandma's birthday, just come to the mall with me. So the plan was I would sneak onto my best friend's bus after school and skip my grandma's birthday. By the way, my grandma was low-key a hoe. Like, half of her kids won't even bring their husbands around her, because after she got their numbers, she would end up sending nude pictures to them. Anyway, so the end of the day rolls around and I go to my locker to get my book bag when I'm called down to the office.